Pérotin, also called Perotin the Great, was a European composer, believed to be French, who lived around the end of the 12th and beginning of the 13th century. He was the most famous member of the Notre Dame school of polyphony and the Ars Antiqua style. He was one of very few composers of his day whose name has been preserved, and can be reliably attached to individual compositions. This is due to the testimony of an anonymous English student at Notre Dame known as Anonymous IV, who wrote about him and his predecessor Léonin.Anonymous IV called him Magister Perotinus. The title, employed also by Johannes de Garlandia, means that Perotinus, like Léoninus, earned the degree Magister Artium, almost certainly in Paris, and that he was licensed to teach. The name Perotinus, the Latin diminutive of Petrus, is assumed to be derived from the French name Pérotin, diminutive of Pierre. The diminutive was presumably a mark of respect bestowed by his colleagues. He was also designated Magnus by Anonymous IV, a mark of the esteem in which he was held, even long after his death. Musical forms and style. Pérotin composed organa, the earliest type of polyphonic European church music. Previous church music such as Gregorian and other types of chant had been monophonic. He pioneered the styles of organum triplum and organum quadruplum. In fact, his seded principes and vided omnes are among only a few organa quadrupla known. A prominent feature of his compositional style was the tenor. The tenor is based on an existing melody from the liturgical repertoire, such as Alleluia verse, gradual verse from the Mass, or a responsoria benedicamus from the office. In the various forms of organum that were developed in Paris, the tenor literally holds the melody of the Gregorian chant. An organum duplum on benedicamus dominos can be found in the sources gives a clear example of two main styles used: florid organum, organum purum, and discantus. The chant melody for the second tone benedicamus is mostly syllabic with only 3 simple ligatures. This part will be sung in extended continuous-sounding syllables, laying an organ point a harmonic basis for the duplum of vox originalis, a new florid line which will have many notes to the one of the tenor. Usually a single syllable in the chant comes back as a long note in the tenor. Its length is governed by the development of the upper voice as it works toward a modulation to the next tone of the tenor. In this fashion, B. Ni, die, California, mu, S is stretched out syllable per syllable. The next section, domino, starts with a long melisma on do, and is set in discantus style, where both the tenor and organal voice proceed in one of the rhythmic modes. In organum purum, the tenor tends to be static a lot on a few tones. In discantus style it has its fair share of the modal rhythms. At the end, the O of domino, the tenor comes to rest on the tonic note, while the upper voice makes its final runs toward the tonic or the octave. At that point the organum is finished, and the Deo gratias will be sung correlator. Organa exist for 2 to 4 voices, but for 2 voices, organum duplum has the most freedom in performance, as it will invariably have many sections of organum purum, where the upper voice is rhapsodic and not bound by strict modal rhythm. In 3 or 4-part organa all the upper voices need to be organized rhythmically, even over a long static tenor. There is another group of new compositions on new texts, the conductus, which exist in a variety of forms: monophonic strophic songs and simple or complex conductus for 2 to 4 voices. Works. Anonymous IV attributed 4 compositions to Pérotin: the 4-voice Vided Omnis and Seded Principes, and the 3-voice Alleluia Possui Adiatorium, and Alleluia Nativitas. 9 other works are attributed to him by contemporary scholars on stylistic grounds. grounds, all in the organum style, as well as the two-voiced Dum Sigillum Summi Patris and the monophonic Beata Viscera in the conductor style. Perotin's works are preserved in the Magnus Liber, the great book of early polyphonic church music, which was in the collection of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. The Magnus Liber also contains the works of his slightly earlier contemporary Léonin. However, attempts by scholars to place Pérotin at Notre Dame have been inconclusive, all evidence being circumstantial, and very little is known of his life. His dates of activity can be approximately established from some late 12th century edicts of the Bishop of Paris, Eudes de Sully, which mention organum triplum and organum quadruplum, and his known collaboration with poet Philip the Chancellor, whose Beata Viscera he could not have set before about 1220. The bishop's edicts are quite specific, and suggest that Perotin's organum quadruplum Vidit Omnis was written for Christmas 1198, and his other organum quadruplum Sedit Principes was composed for St. Stephen's Day 1199, for the dedication of a new wing of the Notre Dame Cathedral. His music, as well as that of Léonin and their anonymous contemporaries, has been grouped together as the School of Notre Dame. Two important members of the Notre Dame administration have been suggested as possible identities for Perotinus: the theologian Petrus Cantor and the Petrus who was successor of Notre Dame from at least 1207 until about 1238. Petrus' successor is more probable, in part on chronological grounds, and partly because of the successor's role in overseeing the celebration of the liturgy in the cathedral. Contemporary critiques with polyphony musicians were able to achieve musical feats perceived by many as beautiful, and by others, distasteful. John of Salisbury taught at the University of Paris during the years of Léonin and Pérotin. He attended many services at the Notre Dame choir school. In De Nugis Curialium he offers a first-hand description of what was happening to music in the High Middle Ages. This philosopher and Bishop of Chartres wrote, "When you hear the soft harmonies of the various singers, some taking high and others low parts, some singing in advance, some following in the rear, others with pauses and interludes, you would think yourself listening to a concert of sirens rather than men, and wonder at the powers of voices. Whatever is most tuneful among birds could not equal. Such is the facility of running up and down the scale, so wonderful the shortening and multiplying of notes, the repetition of the phrases, or their emphatic utterance. The treble and shrill notes are so mingled with tenor and bass, that the ears lost the power of judging. When this goes to excess it is more fitted to excite lust than devotion, but if it is kept in the limits of moderation, it drives away care from the soul and the solicitudes of life, confers joy and peace and exaltation in God, and transports the soul to the society of angels." Influence. Perotin's music has influenced modern minimalist composers such as Steve Reich, particularly in Reich's work Proverb Recordings, Gothic Revolution, Sacred Music to 16, Harry Christophers, Simon Russell Beale Coro DVD, Messe de la Nativité de la Vierge, Ensemble Organum, Marcel Pérez, Harmonium Mundi 900 and 1538, Perotin. The Hilliard Ensemble, CDECM New Series, 837-751-2, Sacred Music from Notre Dame Cathedral, Tonus Peregrinus, Anthony Pitts, CD Naxos 8.557340.